I've done a lot of system implementations, and I've worked at the OEMs and I've worked at MROs and airlines. And one of the big challenges that we have is this data is all over the place. All right. And so, it's very, very difficult, to utilize data that's scattered in a lot of places. We don't really have knowledge of what the sources of the data are sometimes. Oh, we do, but there are systems in place to be able to structure the data and the authenticity of the data. But the ability to be able to leverage that data is challenged because it's distributed. All right. Now, how does blockchain help bring that together?
So blockchain, and we're talking about a private blockchain, and that's what SkyThread is building. And it's building a private blockchain for the industry, right? But when you can address the industry top down and get alignment from the OEMs, from the tier ones, from the airlines, from MROs on a singular model for data governance and a platform for creating that data governance, then you're able to build a blockchain that can bring all those different siloed systems and all these different enterprises together. And when you can do that, you can now automate, I think, what has been the biggest technical inhibitor to driving value out of digital in our systems, which is how do you validate very quickly that you have the correct data, right? So we talk about when you're going through and trying to assess the quality of data in an MES, right, maintenance and engineering system, or MIS is another way people describe these. A lot of that data, especially for older aircraft or for especially larger airlines that have legacy processes, was first put on paper, right? So now you have people, and it's very common, who are reading handwritten serial numbers and handwritten notes, and they're typing that in. You get to, okay, well, this serial number, is that a 0 or is that an O? To give a very specific example, is that an I or an L or a 1? Right. And sometimes it's very hard to validate, okay, are we talking about the right part here without actually taking the part off the airplane and looking at what's stamped on the part, which is oftentimes an expensive proposition. But when that parts go through a life cycle where they're touched by multiple actors, and you've connected multiple actors to that industry blockchain, now you have multiple sources of data conferring on that same part, and then you can automate truth from looking at that conference. It's a lot like how fly-by-wire systems work, where you have 3 computers that are built differently, that come from different architectures, all doing the same thing, conferring on truth, right? It's applying that fly-by-wire logic to data in the MRO space.
Yeah. Okay. So, Mark, I like to grab people's questions as they come in. It kind of helps keep the momentum going. Sometimes the name of the LinkedIn user doesn't come across. I don't know why, but this particular person just has a general question. It says, can you download the data information from engines and APUs in engineering evaluations during a pre-buy inspection process? So if you're going to be acquiring an aircraft, a used aircraft, or maybe you have a lease return or something, how can, blockchain help us in that process, or in a pre-acquisition process?
Sure. Well, so today SkyThread isn't focused today yet on enabling what we'd call the data coming from the aircraft, from the engine, from the APUs. But we can imagine how this will work in the future, with the governance network that we've set up. So what blockchain is really great at is automating an enforcement of consensus-based governance policy. So we talk about how do you mitigate, and then the challenge in the industry is really how do you mitigate conflict of interest. So if you're acquiring an aircraft, right, and you have, let's say, a Honeywell APU and a CFM engine on that aircraft, you can imagine on a blockchain there are prescribed contracts that are driven by a data governance consensus form with input from Honeywell and CFM that say, okay, here in these conditions, how you see the data and how data that for either trade secret reasons or financial reasons, how does that data get redacted or removed, right? So that you're not sitting, what we're trying to solve for is sitting at a negotiating table for 6 months or longer, trying to agree on how to share the data. Right. I think we have a good sense that sharing data is absolutely necessary to driving value for anyone. So it's just how do we put a process in place that we can all trust to make sure that the data is leveraged in the manner in which it's intended.